All right, let's get into the movies of the week.
Yeah.
And, I mean, what better way to start than with Twisters? The biggest film to come out in, at least this past weekend. I don't know if you saw the stuff about who raised more money. The vice president, soon to be president, if be, or Twisters that made
race.
80. And neck race. Honestly, it is funny, right? Because this is like, I'm just going to say, I feel like the part of the country where she's not getting a single vote. Twisters takes place in Tornado Alley, as it is the follow-up to the 1990s film. That in this household is a really big deal. If that plays on TNT, wherever that movie comes on, it is getting played all the way through. I had the chance to rewatch the 4K of that, or whatever version they're streaming, because I think they're trying to come up with another take on it, redux on it. I think the first Twister, it is the perfect popcorn flick. Someone had this post about, when a movie's 5-star, when a movie is 3 stars but it's really 5 stars. This is that genre, that disaster type of movie, and that's what the original always held for me. And Twisters felt like it was going the route of the Top Gun thing that you had mentioned prior. Turns out that it's even got the Top Gun director as the writer. Do you know that?
Yeah, I didn't realize until credits rolled that Joseph Kosinski was at least credited for the story, I believe, on this. I guess there must have been a prior version of this that maybe he was attached to direct, and eventually the reins fell to Lee Isaac Chung.
Who I think did a fantastic job. What do you think?
Yeah, I obviously it feels like coming from a film like Minari that we both loved, you're working with a completely different skill set to pioneer this kind of like action blockbuster. But I think he did a really fantastic job. It's really satisfying. He elicited some really excellent, charismatic performances from a lot of the cast.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it really delivers. We got a question from Josh here in the live stream asking if we thought he was a good choice, noting that he knows the environments very well. Lee is a guy who grew up in Oklahoma, around where this film is set, and it does feel like it has that like love and appreciation for the environment. It does feel, you get a bit of that experience, on the ground experience.
Yeah, I think he's from Arkansas, and then in my rewatch for the 40X, the main character of what's his name is from Arkansas, and I'm like, oh, okay, clever boy there. I think it's the best example of getting an independent director, someone who's done smaller stuff, and bringing him up to the bigger scale. You and I have done this podcast for a while. We see someone get picked out of like Sundance, South by, they make their big screen debut, and nothing that we loved about them. Is there, after, they get millions and millions of dollars, I think you see his stuff here. The way he shoots a lot of the exteriors is like what he remembers it looking like, and him wanting to capture it right at dawn, right at twilight. It was shot on film, and he said that he fought for it and got the specific cinematographer. Spielberg gave him the okay for it. I think like he really wore his heart on his sleeve, and you see a lot of his intimacy is what I think I would really describe his filming style as, because I think some of the best shots aren't even the tornadoes. There is this insane shot with what's her name, where she does the dandelion bit. This man grabs a film camera and films her at like 200 frames per second and does a tilt around when she's trying to like figure out where is the spot that we're supposed to go for the tornado. And I just thought it was beautiful. And he adds a lot of those elements to it, even when it comes to the disaster scenes. He said he described how the houses, all of them were built to be real houses with real memories. All of the extras are people who survived a tornado or a disaster. So when it happens, they're not just playing set dressing. All of the houses that get destroyed are real memories. And all of the people there are reenacting the turmoil that they went through. I thought they got the best director for the job.
Yeah, I think he did a really excellent job. I think there are maybe elements in some of the set pieces where you feel some of the plasticity of the CGI, but it's not overly like unrealistic or anything. I think he does a very good job of kind of keeping you close to the characters and their experience of the action, and particularly that opening is really terrifying in the way that like a horror movie is. It almost feels like like a Jaws sequence or something out of Godzilla with the monster chasing them. I thought it was notable that there were 5 tornado set pieces in this movie, with the opening bit, the part with the windmills, the twins, the rodeo, and then that last sequence with the movie theater. It is a jam-packed blockbuster. There's this nonstop action, and maybe it's a little bit unrealistic for so many tornadoes to hit within such a short period of time in Oklahoma. But it keeps you engaged. It keeps you leaning forward. I thought it did a good job of like really, really never letting up. I did, as I mentioned on our last weekend must watch, get to watch Twisters, the original Twister for the first time, and it did put into contrast some of the set pieces that maybe I think Twisters could have benefited from. Like there's that really fun moment in the original Twister where they like drive through the house. I feel like
you're not going to replicate that.
You're not going to replicate it, but I think there's a little bit of like that wackiness of like how they're trying to navigate the storms. Maybe missing from the original movie. That doesn't mean I wasn't like on the edge of my seat and really, really into all the set pieces here.
You wouldn't say that the cow from the first one, iconic. Mm-hmm. They weren't able
Wizard of Oz
to.
Reference.
Yeah, they weren't able to go all the way. That was the thing on my rewatch too. I'm gonna get back to the Wizard of Oz. It's all Wizard of Oz, the first and the second one too. The cow gets swapped out for the chicken bit, and you don't think that the house gets swapped out for the theater bit? That theater bit is crazy.
Yeah, but they have a drive-in theater bit in the first movie too.
They do, but they weren't hanging on to dear life by the theater chairs.
No,
that was
the movie theater bit really
I was
works.
hanging out with them.
The movie theater bit really works. I honestly, what I wanted a little bit more of was those windmills, because that was terrifying.
When they moved like this, and I'm like, those things are really heavy. If one of those flies out, you're donezo. Like, but I thought it was goofy enough the way it needed to be, especially with the way it dispersed the characters, because you got two camps pretty much. You have the camp that is our lead, played by the one and only
Daisy Edgar
very
Jones.
British, Daisy Edgar Jones. I thought she was very British in the movie. I didn't mind it too much. There's one big speech she gives. I heard the accent coming in and out.
It definitely peaked out a little bit, and I gotta say, like, with our two leads of Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn Powell. You get Glenn Powell kind of giving like the movie star performance of the summer. I do think he wipes her off the screen a little bit. You're kind of like, whenever Glenn Powell's not in this movie, it's a little bit of like, where's Glenn Powell? Bring back Glenn Powell.
And he's got the audacity to tell the reporter, I think she's your story. Boy, we're here. We bought tickets for you.
Yeah.
Put the two fingers up in the air like, come on, dude. I get that y'all want us to like her. She's so intriguing. What line she say that was so intriguing? We like her because she's supposed to have this like sixth sense for tornadoes, but as you see from the intro and such, it's also kind of like the baggage that she has. No, you're right. I thought Glenn Powell was fantastic in this, because there's a couple of scenes where they do the whole, I'm going to explain to you, person who knows more than I do about tornadoes, what an F5 is, because I need to tell you this really cool thing about, we focus on a tornado and name it after the destruction it's left, not at the moment. So we only know it in hindsight. I'm like, I think she knows this.
Right.
But he delivers it in such a good way, and that's when you have a really solid movie in your hands, when they're breaking some exposition bits, and it doesn't break the movie down. It adds to it. It's a very emotional moment. I also think the way they use the music throughout was pretty clever, because they have a completely solely original soundtrack. You know, it's like Black Panther, but for the country people. And this whole thing is like weaved in to either be a background song, something that he's playing. It'll literally be a countdown to him pressing one of their like mixtapes as they go into a tornado. They'll have an artist who I think plays outside of the motel. And I found that really funny, because I'm like, you're clearly an artist. You don't belong here in this Oklahoma motel. He said his sister does the national anthem at the rodeo too. So it's a very big
Glenn
family
Powell's sister?
affair. Glenn Powell's sister. She's the one singing there. A much better national anthem than the MLB
It did really give the whole movie this very like country twanging Americana feel. I thought that was kind of interesting, given the whole like debate around Lee Isaac Chung's last movie, which is another Great Plains set film.
Talk about it.
But it was frequently labeled as, a foreign film or a Korean film or something like that, despite being, an American film just about people who immigrated from Korea. And it's almost like he's gone in the complete opposite directions. Like, all right, you want some Americana? I can give you Americana.
Exactly. That's why I loved it so much, because he's mopped it, dude. He's got the soundtrack. He's got the cast. To even go to all the other ones, because, again, she's more so on the side of trying to
Right.
fix what she's had going with her because of the intro. And it's pretty much just her and Anthony Ramos, who kind of brings her back into the game. He gets to do the cool little spin demonstration on what they want to do with the technology, which was also kind of sketchy. This man straight up said, I worked for the military for a little bit, and they created
Never
tech
mind.
where I could hear a moth from all the way over there. I'm like,
Let's spend more time on that, Anthony
yeah,
Ramos.
wait, what are they using that for? And how do they have so much of that you were able to take two portable versions?
It's interesting because it's sort of an inversion of the first movie where like the evil tech guys or the more like business guys are the antagonists in the first movie. And then you start out on the opposite end, and ultimately they kind of invert that. So playing in the traditions of playing in the tradition of the franchise, but giving you a bit of a different flavor for it.
Because you get like a bad guy, but at the same time, I'm always a big fan of like someone not knowing the mistakes that they made, and if there's room for growth. And I thought that was good, which is why you forgot the Twister set pieces. You did forget one. There was the internal twisters they had along the way.
The emotional twisters.
You know, I joked about that with Alina. She laughed at me, and then I got Glenn Powell actually saying it on record. So that is a thing in the movie. Some of the other people who they had in the cast that I thought were really, really good was all of the team for the actual Wranglers. They're the people who don't really have the education in it. This man got the education, Glenn Powell's character, and then kind of gave it to everybody else. I've been saying, Brandon, he just does not have good luck with the sky. But I think he's even better here than he was in Nope. There's just something about his role here, especially the second time around when you catch all the little things that he says. Talking about the first one, you weren't going to be able to replicate all those side characters like Philip Seymour Hoffman. And getting a little bit of him and some of the other characters I thought really helped. His banter with, his name Tyler? I thought was great.
Yeah, I mean, they're almost trying to replicate that Twisters thing in real time where the first movie was filled with all these like really recognizable, beloved character actors. So here they're going to pull in Brandon Pereira from Nope, who is excellent, as you said, in this movie. They're going to pull in Tunde Adebimpe, who I wish was out there making more TV on the radio music, but instead kind of gets the Philip Seymour Hoffman, like dude who's way too, like almost like
way too
sexually
smart
into these tornadoes part.
Dude, there was one part with this man where he they all pointed at each other. I think they're like celebrating and they're going, yeah, and he just goes, That got one dude in the back to laugh so hard. It's subtle, right? It's such a tiny role for him, but you know everything about his character. When they see the twins, right? Brandon's going to be the person to say like the meme, the in and out gift that they're going to have for the movie. But his was like he needs to name it. Like you're saying, he gets so turned on by it, but he wants people to know, no, there is a name for this. He can't just experience it. He needs to connect it with what he knows. He was great. Sasha Lane.
Sasha Lane, who we've loved in stuff like American Honey or How to Blow Up a Pipeline, was great. Kiernan Shipka had that small role in the beginning. Katie O'Brien from Love Lies Bleeding, also a lot of fun in this movie.
It took me a while to realize it was her, dude. I don't know why.
Katie?
It did not click until I came home.
Yeah, I mean, without the like six pack and gigantic muscles being, it's a cool role for her.
Yeah. But no,
what did you think about David Cornsweet, who kind of plays one of the antagonists in this film as well?
So I've been confusing.
Not so super of a man.
Yeah, I've been confusing David, and I've also been confusing. I think it's Joel Alwyn, because he was just in Kinds of Kindness. To me, they got a little bit of a similar look. They are different though. It was a certain point where he's strolling in the truck. Let me try to pick up a picture of him. And as we were saying, there is a subplot, which I thought was done very well. There have been complaints about this movie, and I don't know how you feel about this. You let me know, that the movie dealing with weather didn't get too much into climate change.
It's a movie.
Unless they saw it on mute. I thought they did as well. There's something about New York having tornadoes and price going up. I don't know. I felt like people wanted like a speech, but Lee Isaac talked about that because he's been getting that a lot in interviews, and he goes, I focus on the science, and if the scientists didn't tell me to add anything other than that or some big speech, I didn't. The best part that it covers is this idea of his character and what they do with tragedy. When things get torn down, who comes in to help?
Right.
I thought that was way more profound than telling people, hey, here's nothing you could do about Tornado Alley that you're not from. Like that, what? But it
Right.
does inform you on what's happening to families out there in the midst of all this destruction and who you're giving to. I thought his character was pretty good. I think it's ballsy to go out there and keep playing like bad guys before you're about to be Superman.
Yep.
Melina had caught this one where it's like you almost like see him with the logo that his company has. It looks like an evil Superman logo. And in that, I was like, okay, I like what they're doing with him.
That's pretty funny. Apparently, he got the call that he was getting cast as Superman while on set for this movie.
You're right. So I just heard it this morning. There's supposed to be a scene where he came back to film because Katie talked about this. She was like, I was getting swole for Love Lies Bleeding and whatever else, and they started talking about their eating regimens. And he came back for a scene and he was bulked up. So there is a scene where he will go from the MIT guy to just randomly bulking.
This movie also has sort of like an interesting element in that the Daisy Edgar Jones character is like trying to work on the science to make tornadoes less deadly, and they talk about using like the polymer that's in diapers to affect the environment. And like I know it's a bunch of pseudoscience, but I kind of liked how much they tried to kind of make the science make sense.
It fails, they restart again,
Yeah, like it sounded legit enough. I'm sure it's all bullshit, but it sounded kind of legit enough that I didn't feel like my brain was completely off during this whole movie.
I agree. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting perspective to it. It only made me question how you were saying how many tornadoes can be in one place.
Right.
How many of these places have not built their stuff to be to come with basements, to come with better foundations? There's no one ever getting warnings while we're out here at a rodeo. There was some goofy parts in the movie for sure, but I thought overall, especially with the rewatch, I thought it was a blast. It's the exact type of movie that you want to go see, just to kind of like shut your brain off. It doesn't throw so much at you that leaves you feeling heavy by the end of it. You feel all the tension in the theater and you're relieved by the end of it. Great characters, great cast, VFX, music, all that good stuff. I thought they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, totally. I maybe have some questions about like the practicality of getting as close to the twisters as they did while like other things are being pulled out of the air and they're able to stay on the ground. But you know, it's riveting, and it's kind of the type of stylized blockbuster entertainment that I think we're a bit hungry for. Like I do think it's interesting that this is a style of movie that in some ways was like rejected over the past decade. You know, you have The Day After Tomorrow is kind of the last, in my mind, major environmental disaster type of movie. And then you get stuff like 2012. Well, ones that I think were widely embraced. 2012 has more of a mixed response. We kind of liked Greenland a few years ago, but it feels like this genre almost like went away for a little bit. Yeah. And maybe it kind of went away for a long enough that now we're really ready for it.
That's true.
Either that or we just all recognize how cool twisters are, even though they're really destructive.
Well, it's like a monster movie. You had mentioned earlier the fact that it feels like Jaws. There's like a whole element to it that in the movie theater, it's a monster fest that's happening. Yeah. And I thought that was pretty clever. I was like, oh, I see what you're doing here. You are playing it out. You got Spielberg as producer. You're playing the twisters off as monsters. And that's awesome because it's not a Michael Myers or Frankenstein where it's like, what's the continuity? Once a twister dies, you get another one coming in, especially here, every 25 minutes or so. So I'm curious to see where they end up taking it. So I'm curious your thoughts on whether you want to see more of it, and then also how you feel this one dealt with the legacy of it. Did you feel it was too heavy-handed, maybe not enough?
I know there's some people who are hoping that there would be an even greater connection. I personally expected the Maura Tierney character to be Helen Hunt or something like that.
Oh, but the mom?
I don't need that direct of a connection. I thought it was cool that they brought the Dorothy capsule back. Like, it's a direct acknowledgement of the past in a way. I don't really need it to be such a direct sequel. And in fact, in some ways I prefer it because once we start getting into bringing legacy characters back, then we start opening up the like Last Jedi arguments of, are you being faithful enough to who I remember when I was a child?
Yeah. You know what it felt like? Especially on the rewatch, because they had like the Dorothy thing there, and I was like, oh, it's the or is it someone who like just recreate? It felt like they were fans of the movie
Right.
more than they were like in the movie follow-up. And I thought that was
Yes.
pretty cool. I thought just the subtleties of they went to the same school, the same college that the older characters went to. I thought it's expanding on the whole Dorothy thing, not just with the machine, but his whole squad. I don't know if you saw all the cars were Tin Man, Scarecrow, Lion. They all had different vehicle names for that.
Yep.
She's going through a whole Dorothy story as well of leaving home because of a tornado, coming back to it. So it's a lot of nice little parallels there. And I thought keeping things simple, like I think it's Bill Paxton's son who comes in for that cameo at the motel. Like, that's how you do it. It's just a character. It's not intrusive. You figure out after the fact. So I don't know. I thought it worked. I'm curious to see where they take it. It does feel like they want to do a couple more. There's this big talk about a scene that was changed towards the end. I didn't really feel it until everyone's like, they took something from us. Once you see the movie, I'm sure you can investigate it and see what it is, because the scene is still out there. So,
and I think it kind of worked in the context of the movie, although, like, I get people kind of want a little more wish fulfillment in their blockbusters. I wouldn't have been
like what the movie
it.
does too. It's cool because I think it makes the relationship better, in my opinion.
Exactly. It's more about how they feel about each other than like the romance of it.
If they feel it, they're chasing it. There you go. But I guess some people really wanted to see the catch. Twisters out in theaters. I recommend it in Dolby, Prime, whatever your best theater is near you. But if you get the chance to do that 40x screening, make sure it comes with a seatbelt, because you will fly out. Does it get an
extra half star for the 40x experience?
It does get a little. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, there were some scenes. No, like, it is bad. You were actually holding on for life with them. It wasn't a movie. I swear, when they come in to help the towns, the ushers were coming in to help us from our seats too. We're like falling down, bro. It was a mess. It was a mess.
I think I'm gonna land at a 3.5 star on this one. Maybe even a little generous, just because, like, it is a little bit of a silly movie, but it is a lot of fun, and maybe eventually it falls into that camp that you were talking about at the beginning of our discussion of those, like, 5-star, 3-star movies.
Yeah. Look, I was sitting at it a little bit above a 3.5. You know, I was in those IMDb 3.7 numbers. My extra little quarter is going to go up there for the 40x repeated experience. So I'm sitting at a 4. You're sitting at a 3.5. In our new Intercut profile that you can go follow all of our Letterboxd reviews when we make our weekend must-watch list at the end when we're giving you our recommendations. We're going to have that all right here. We aggregate it. It's from your favorite movie, no? To add it to the aggregate. 3.5, 4, where are we falling?
I mean, if you're if I'm like a weak 3.5 and you're a strong 3.5 or a 4, I don't know. Is that 3.5? Do we go up to 4?
I don't know, I'm asking you, bro.
3.5 with the heart?
3.5 with the heart. I'll take it. Twisters out in theaters. Catch it because Deadpool comes out, and I don't like that part of it. I don't need to see Deadpool in 40x. Y'all need to keep this one in 40x. Give Deadpool the IMAX and everything else, but this needs. It's different when you go to a 40x movie and it's just like. This actually has like grass smells. Like, people don't get that. You have to actually send the sense. When he does the dirt road, you smell the dirt road. Like, you actually have elements to it that I feel like need to be refilled. And I don't want to smell a single thing that Deadpool had for this next showing over here. So please keep the 40x for the movies that require it.
Yeah, I wish we could even do more of like a rotation for movies too. Just because a new blockbuster is out doesn't mean that something that is a week old or 2 weeks old should be knocked out completely.
Top
like, I get
that.
it. Yeah,
remember?
Exactly.
That was a good time.
Let's share some screens. I don't know. Gustav in the live stream asked us if we feel that Twister has to be seen in theaters for the audio and visuals. And, you know, I do think you are missing something because part of the whole experience is that these are literally awesome meteorological phenomenons, and they don't feel quite so awe-worthy on like it's small TV without surround sound, stuff like that. So I would recommend that. Ryan Reynolds' quips can be just as entertaining at home, in my opinion.
You might need a crowd for the Ryan Reynolds ones. I will say that right there.